Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the AGP YouTube channel. We threw this one up yesterday. Did okay. A few people tuned in. Obviously, it's a wee bit different from what we normally do with the podcast on the podcast streaming sites, but it's what we can make of it at the minute. So yeah, it went all right. I think the sound was okay. And I got a bit better lighting in here this time because it did look quite dark. But yeah, we were just doing a little build up for the Saturday games in the NFL, and obviously there's games today too. So I thought I'd give them a wee go as well and throw it up today as well. So hopefully anybody that watches the NFL and likes it and that enjoyed the video and stuff. As I said yesterday, like we'll probably be stuck for a little while, just with COVID and all the regulations and stuff, and men trying to avoid it and stuff like that. So we might do a few more of these. Vesty was messaging earlier. He says he might tackle one as well. So we'll see what happens. But I hopefully he's tuned in and he's liked it. We'll give it another while. We'll maybe do a few more of these. I might do something for football. Maybe some evening during the week or something like that too. Just to keep up to date. But obviously it's a big weekend in the NFL, so I wanted to start with this anyway, for the time being. But there was some good football played yesterday. Now I'm even struggling to remember the games. Tampa Bay obviously came through with the win. Heineke played some stuff yesterday, to be fair. Heineke played very well. He was definitely game for it anyway. But it was always going to be kind of one-sided with the Bucs. You sort of thought that they would pull it out. It's going to be hard to stop Tom Brady in the playoffs, especially when you lose your starting quarterback and Alex Smith. What else? I suppose the Rams too. What did I say in the video yesterday? I thought that Russ would do enough to overcome the Rams defense, and I didn't think without Jared Goff that the Rams offense could do enough against against the Seattle defense. But obviously things changed pretty quick. Jared Goff was introduced into the game after the injury, and I did say in the video yesterday that the Seattle and Russell Wilson have struggled a bit this year against the Rams. They're maybe just I need to probably turn my internet off in case I get too many updates. But yeah, sorry, where was it? Yeah, the Rams defense caused Russell all sorts of problems, and they have done a lot this year, to be fair. Aaron Donald had his fingerprints all over that game. They were having to double team him. He was in the backfield. Obviously, he got hurt in the midst of it all, trying to sack Russell Wilson. His fingerprints were all over that game, but even when he came out, they were still causing him issues. I've now forgotten the defensive coordinator's name, but he was picked up this year, I think, by Sean McVay. I think he was an outside linebackers coach somewhere now. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But, he obviously drew up a good defensive scheme and caused Russell an awful lot of problems. And then the Indy Buffalo game was tight. I sort of thought it was going to be tight. And it ended up kind of going the way that we sort of thought. Indy ran the ball well. Jonathan Taylor had a good day. And Phillip Rivers did okay, but then down the stretch I felt like that last run down the stretch, I felt Phillip Rivers was a little bit all over the place. There was bad clock management, bad use of timeouts earlier in the half, and then Phillip Rivers didn't really move the ball and put it in the position where they could even get a field goal at the end of it, and had a sling it for a Hail Mary, and even that at the end of it all finished up short. So I think that the Colts played well enough. They were eating the clock from the very get go of the game. They were letting the play clock run down, trying to keep that high-powered Buffalo offense off the field. But they ran a good game, but just that last few minutes of the game, that last quarter, maybe the final quarter was poor from the Colts in my opinion. But yeah, I think I picked Buffalo and I picked the Seahawks and I picked Tampa to win. Obviously the Rams came through there. Jared Goff played okay, with his injured thumb. But we've got other games to talk about today, and that's what I'm on to do. It's a second slate, Sunday morning here. Well, Sunday afternoon now, to be fair. But yeah, first off the list is Baltimore and the Titans. Obviously, it's a rematch of last year's playoffs where Baltimore came out and they were poor to start the game last year. Um, they were down by double digits quite early in that game, and I suppose this is probably the thing between both these teams here is that I don't think either offense is great coming from behind, coming from if they do get down in a game. Um, Baltimore haven't been great at it, and I don't really trust Ryan Tannehill to be great at it either. I think that's going to be the biggest talking points around in this game. Whether a team can get out to a lead, and then obviously the other team will have to chase, or is it going to be like a sort of nip and tuck tight game the whole way through? Um, the Baltimore run game is that's obviously what they want to do. To be fair, this is going to be a bit of an old school football game. To be fair, both these teams like to run it. I think Baltimore run it the most in the league this season, or have run it the most in the league this season. And then obviously the Titans have Derrick Henry, who joined the 2,000-yard rushing club this year. So obviously these teams do like to run the football. They're quite similar in that vein, and then they're also quite similar in that I suppose I would still definitely have Lamar Jackson over Ryan Tannehill, no doubt about it. But have some question marks as far as passing the ball, and whether they can come from behind, both teams really. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody can get out and establish a lead, because that could put the other team in a bad spot. But as I said, Baltimore have been running the ball really well, and I think in the last game of the regular season there they ran for 400 odd yards, but obviously it was against the Bengals. But that's going to be key. The Baltimore's offense entirely runs through the fact that they give you a lot of the same looks. They give you a lot of everything, or a lot of the time. The offense lines up and it does look very similar, but it's all different little wrinkles and different rubs and stuff that they do that catch you off guard. A lot of RPO stuff, and it keeps you off balance. This is where the game could be won and lost, really. The front seven for Tennessee hasn't been great at all this year. It hasn't been fantastic at all. And Mike Vrabel's a defensive guy. He was obviously a linebackers coach and everything as well. So, this week when they were game planning, he's going to have to really have thought of a way to stop the run here, because, as I said, the front seven for Tennessee the front seven on defense hasn't been great. And if Baltimore decide to run the ball, I would say, well, they will decide to run the ball, but if Baltimore can establish the run and get themselves out and ahead, it's going to be trouble for Tennessee this week. They did play each other earlier in the year, and the Titans did win that game 30-24, but I felt like maybe the Ravens have kind of played their way into a bit of form as the seasons went on. I think that they've improved somewhat coming down the stretch. This last week or so, I've just kind of been feeling the Ravens that they could make a deep playoff run here. I feel like maybe Kansas have faltered a little bit, and the playoffs can be a lot of who comes into it hot, who can get a run of games going, who can perform when the playoffs start. And I feel like Baltimore have kind of got rolling a little bit. I feel like some teams, like obviously Pittsburgh, were rolling for a point in time. They've sort of started to slow a little bit. Kansas have in the last few weeks. Buffalo's maybe the only other one as well, but I've just had a feeling about the Ravens. What do you see? They'll lose now in the first round, and that'll be them done. But I feel like they can make a run here. I'm sort of feeling that they could be the team that represents the AFC in the Super Bowl this year. I feel like Lamar Jackson has improved. I've kind of been a wee bit critical of him this year. I felt like it would take it would kind of be another year where he would have to develop again when, defensive coordinators start to respect him a bit more as a passer. So I think that it's taken him a while, but down the stretch of the season, I feel like he's looked better. But yeah, I feel like the Ravens could make a run here. I'm kind of tipping them a wee bit over the Titans, but it's going to be a tight game. There's a lot of there's a lot of battles to happen here. Like obviously, as I said, Vrabel is going to have to come up with something because that front seven for the Tennessee Titans defense hasn't been great, and they're going to have to stop the run obviously. But obviously the Baltimore Ravens have to do the same. Tennessee play their best football when Derrick Henry plays well, and so Baltimore have to do the same thing. Baltimore have to stop Derrick Henry, and that, like it's sort of the way I'm feeling, or the way I'm feeling about it is, if there's a team that can stop the other team running the football, they could probably get themselves. Obviously, you would assume that they could get themselves out to a lead, and then it's on the onus of the other team to chase the game. And I feel like both teams aren't as good chasing the game. So, is it the thing is that I trust Baltimore's defense a bit more than I trust Tennessee's, for obvious reasons, really. You've got Wolf there, Calais Campbell. It's a lot of onus on them fellas up front to stop Derrick Henry today, and that's probably why I'm going to pull for the Ravens here. I feel like them fellas will have a better time stopping Derrick Henry than the Titans front seven will stopping Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, who's played himself into good form coming down the stretch, and Gus Edwards in that. The only other sort of wee area is that I think that possibly the Titans could be better at coming from behind. With Corey Davis having a sort of good season, AJ Brown as well, they've got two playmakers there. As you've seen even in the playoff game last season with AJ Brown, they've got two playmakers there who can make big plays. They're a bit more reliable, I feel, than the Ravens wide receiving options. Mark Andrews has been great too, to be fair, but for the Ravens at the tight end position. But I 100% trust AJ Brown and Corey Davis more than I would any Ravens receiver. So I feel like they could be possibly better coming from behind, or better, under pressure and having to make plays through the air than the Ravens would be. But as I said, I feel like the Ravens might be better at stopping Henry with Calais Campbell and them boys up front than the Titans will be at stopping the Ravens run game, and I think that's where the game could be won and lost there. So I think I'm going to pull for the Ravens in this one anyway. Second game, obviously, of today could be, well, I said yesterday that probably the more one-sided game you would probably think, or the most one-sided game of the weekend would be Tampa and Washington. But fair play to Washington, to put it up to them. But second to that, I think, is probably the Saints and the Bears, which is the second game on the slate today. The Saints have been good this last 3 or 4 years. Happily enough, the Vikings stopped them a few times, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. But the Saints have had a good roster for a number of years now. But the thing is Drew Brees has been better than he has been this season in the last number of years. Drew Brees' arm isn't really what it once was. It's the decline of a great quarterback, but all the parallels have been drawn between him and the Peyton Manning season in Denver. But Drew's good. Drew's still good. Drew's still intelligent enough that he knows where he needs to put the ball and when it needs to be there. And it's probably a little bit more anticipation throws now than it was. It was just pure accuracy from Drew Brees for the majority of his career, but now he has to maybe anticipate it a little bit more because the ball hasn't really got the zip on it that it once had. But when it comes down to it here in this game, I'm not going to spend too long in this game because I don't think that... I think it's nearly impossible for the Bears to win this. Not impossible. We've seen miracles happen against the Saints before, so I think that the Bears may need somewhat of a miracle here today to come out. I just trust Drew Brees and Sean Payton exponentially more than I would ever trust Matt Nagy and Mitchell Trubisky. The Chicago's going to have a really hard time with it here. They're going to need to play like the perfect game. Trubisky can't throw. He has looked a wee bit better down the stretch this season, but he's going to have to play a perfect game. No turnovers, moving the ball down the field a little bit, creating plays with his legs. And this Saints defense has been good too. Like Cam Jordan's going to be all over him. I think the only way the Bears could even conceive coming out of a win with this game is maybe like Drew has a bad day. Maybe the Bears defense, which has been good without being being better than good, but without being great this year compared to years past. Maybe they come up and make a few plays. I don't trust Mitchell Trubisky in this offense to make enough plays to beat the Saints, because the Saints defense is one of the better ones in the league as well. So maybe pick six or special teams, Cordero Patterson, maybe something along those lines on special teams, maybe a kick return, punt return, something. They're going to need a lot of luck in this game to come out with a win against a Saints team which has been tipped since before the start of the season to as a Super Bowl contender. As I said, I just trust Sean Payton. Sean Payton will devise a game plan here, and has done all season really. Again, the Saints can beat you in multiple ways. If it takes, taking the ball out of Drew's hands a little bit and running the ball more with Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, Taysom Hill, they're more than comfortable beating you that way. They have no problem beating you that way. And if it calls for Drew to make a few more passes, then he will. And I just trust, it's Drew Brees and Sean Payton at the end of the day. And that dynamic duo isn't just what it once was because of Drew's age and that, but surely they have enough. Surely they have enough to get past the Bears, but stranger things have happened for the Saints, or against the Saints in the playoffs in recent years, which I've been more than happy about. But yeah, they're gonna need the Bears are gonna need a miracle, in all honesty. Defense, maybe a special teams play or something like that. I'm not too sure. I really honestly can't see any way of the Bears winning this game, so I'm gonna pick the Saints in that one. Last of the day then. Last of the Wildcard weekend is a divisional game, obviously. It's the Browns and the Steelers. These two teams know each other very well, obviously. And it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one because there's one team coming into these playoffs in the Browns that are playing better than people expected. They're obviously in the playoffs, and not many teams would have tipped the Browns. Now some could say it's strength of schedule compared to that and stuff, which I would maybe hint at a wee bit. Strength of schedule could, it is what it is. But look, the Browns have got in, and they've looked better as the season has went on. And the Steelers, got out to that hot start, went with an undefeated streak, and then have faltered somewhat down the stretch. So it's a good meeting in the middle in a way, but there's a few big talking points and issues going into this game more so than anything. The big one here is that the Browns have had a nightmare and have got so much going on coming into this game. Kevin Stefanski, the head coach and sort of main guy on offense, coordinating the offense and that, won't be there. He's in COVID protocol or whatever, and he can't be at the stadium. So you've just lost your head coach and your sort of probably primary offensive play caller, a guy that draws up your scheme and stuff. And I'm assuming that he hasn't had a lot of time in the building this week prepping with the team either. Maybe he's been zoomed in or something, but he isn't going to be there on game day. And the other issue for the Browns is the offensive line from left to right is in question today. There's COVID, there's injuries, and somebody was caught drag racing or something the other day. So I don't know what's happening with the Bears offensive line, or not the Browns offensive line. It's a complete question mark the whole way across the board. So there's injuries, COVID, and if there's one team, despite the Steelers' defense not being as great in the last number of weeks, and it's because of injuries themselves really as well. But if there's one team that you don't really want to be facing with massive offensive line issues, it's the Steelers. That Steelers defense has been good, fairly good all year. Some people maybe thought it was overhyped. Some I think it's been good. I think it's been very good. TJ Watt's been unbelievable, and as a whole, I think it's been good. Um, Injuries have played their part for the Steelers defense too, so it's just bad timing for the for the Browns. It's their first playoff appearance in a long time, and yeah, the Steelers defense is going to be all over them. I mean, Baker Mayfield has looked better in the last number of weeks, and you know, but the Browns' offensive line's been protecting him well. They've given him time to throw in the pocket. Earlier on in the season, I was saying he looks so skittish now that he looks like when there's any pressure around him, he's either tucking it and running, or he's falling down, or he's running into tacklers and stuff. But as the season has went on, that Browns' offensive line has greatly improved and has really allowed Baker to play. And in the last number of weeks, you've seen that Baker's been slinging it all over the field, even without some receivers, big weapons that he's been missing on offense. So honestly, I think I would give the because I haven't been entirely sold on what Pittsburgh have been doing on offense this year. Big Ben doesn't look the same. They can't run the ball. The ground game for Pittsburgh this season has been dreadful. Um, and Big Ben's arm isn't the same. He isn't punching the ball downfield. And like the Steelers actually looked okay with Mason Rudolph last week because he was throwing it deep down the field, the likes of Claypool and that. So if if everything was sort of or if everything was okay and both these teams were going in quite more healthy, well, what I'm saying is if the Browns were going in with their offensive line healthy, their head coach there, and then I would probably maybe give the Browns a closer shot here. Because Pittsburgh, as I said, the offense hasn't really impressed me this last while, and but it's just awful timing. Like even the Browns' run game, which has been very 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 good all year with Nick Chubb early, then Kareem Hunt sort of stepping in for him when he was injured in the middle part of the year, and then the return of Nick Chubb. The run game's been good, but if your offensive line is decimated, and especially against this Steelers front seven, you're not going to get any love in the run game either. And Baker's going to be running for his life. Now, maybe some of these guys play through injury, and whatever that the dude that was caught drag racing isn't like suspended or something, then they do have a chance. To be fair, I would give them more of a chance then, obviously. But if their offensive line is decimated, then you know the Pittsburgh front seven is going to be in the backfield all day, causing Baker Mayfield nothing but bother, and they're not going to be able to establish their run. Yeah. The other thing is that maybe the Pittsburgh, or maybe the Browns defensively can maybe create or force turnovers off of Ben, because Ben's arm hasn't been as good. Sometimes the ball really takes his time getting to where it needs to be now, and maybe a few men can jump routes or something, and maybe the Browns defense can create turnovers or a score, magic yards or something, maybe a strip sack, something along those lines, and maybe that can help them, because if this offensive line is done for the Browns today, what also is going to be a factor is Kevin Stefanski runs this offense. Kevin Stefanski primarily calls this offense, and he's going to be the one that would be making adjustments on the fly on the sideline if things aren't going to plan, if there needs to be an offensive adjustment or something along those lines, and he's not there. So that puts Baker under more pressure to be calling play, changing plays, the line of scrimmage, getting a better feel for the game. And I'm not actually entirely sure who's going to be stepping up. Is it Van Fleet or something? He's going to be stepping up possibly to call plays today. So it's just a nightmare for the Browns. And unfortunate for them for their first playoff appearance in such a long time, for so many things to go wrong really in the one week. One other small point is weather. Obviously, this is going to be a night game. It's going to be a primetime game here on Sunday night, obviously, and it's in Pittsburgh. So I haven't seen the weather report or anything. But as I said yesterday, even though Buffalo seemed clear, it was cold. But this is going to be a night game, so I would imagine it's cold here enough in Ireland, and I think it's pretty cold over there too. So I would imagine that Pittsburgh late night and a Sunday night is going to be cold. If there's any other weather, it could change. It's always a factor. around this time of year too. So it could maybe lead to more of a ground game, which would probably favour the Browns better. Pittsburgh haven't got anything going on the ground all year, really. So if there's any dodgy weather situations or whatever in Pittsburgh at the minute, Pennsylvania, could change the course of the game at least a little bit. But again, I think I'm going to go with the Steelers. I'm going to go with the Saints. And yeah, I'm going to pick Baltimore as well. That's my 3 picks for today. I got 2 out of 3 yesterday, so not too bad. Maybe Vesti's going to throw something up. He was messaging me earlier, so he might throw something up as well. Maybe like a wee review of the weekend's games and what his thoughts are. Maybe audio only because, Vesti trying to upload anything with his internet issues could be dire. But hopefully you tuned in if you're an NFL fan and you enjoy it. As I said, we could be a wee bit snooker for a week or two here, and I'll just keep firing these wee things out for the time being. Wee 20-25 minute videos over on the YouTube channel, and then we'll see what way it goes from there. But thanks very much for tuning in anyway, folks. And we'll get back and hopefully be up and running again shortly. Back on the regular schedule and all that carry on. But for the time being, we'll see what way it goes, and sure we'll do these wee things for the crack. But thanks very much for listening, folks. Cheers.